This is Weird Renegade Witches Blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done. Of course, go to the Weird Renegade website, see the phone number there, which includes, of course, the email. But as I stated, if you want me to get in touch with you a little faster, of course, text me what services or energies you would like to start with, or questions and so on. And of course, anytime that you send an email to me, please let me know that you say, hey, I sent an email. Someone texted me and said, hey, I sent you an email, but I didn't see what you were talking about. So just please advise so I can look it up on my email. Other than that, if you really want me to look at some energies, of course, DM me on Instagram. In addition to, of course, you could text me and forward over some frequencies, okay? However, the one-on-one monthly lessons have already started. So hit me up in reference to that energy. And again, I think I'm going to probably go back to having themed frequencies, but some people just need guidance and so on in monthly frequencies, okay? However, I work with people also one-on-one, which is separate from the one-on-one monthly lessons, working very closely in reference to different frequencies of what's going on in a universal soul with individuals. All type of stuff I do, okay? Now understand that work or spell work is separate from one-on-one lessons or one-on-one monthly, not monthly, but one-on-one check-ins that I do with individuals. So understand that, of course, work is a separate cost. However, it goes hand in hand, because usually if I'm doing one-on-ones, of course, there's a work. And if I'm doing work, of course, there are one-on-ones. However, art is occultism. Occultism is a motherfucking art. Wayward is about that revenge, redemption, responsibility, and that motherfucking spell work. And you already know I do that indie occultism. And you know on this shit that I talk about occult things. And however, people was asking me about the energies of the deprogramming and the abortion frequency. Why are you doing it? Because I do. Because that's occultism, okay? However, in this universal soul, I don't exactly know what's going on, okay? Anyway, let me get back to some frequencies here. Interruptions. In this universal soul, I've noticed some frequencies. And I've talked to my spiritual constituents about it. And I call it the God effect. And in this universe, we have servants who work for God, right? And most recently, I was looking at some energies and I said, dang, people out here really believe that they work for God. They'll say, I'm your sister in Christ. I'm this, I'm that. I love you. God this, God that. But we're not realizing we have to be careful of these supposedly godly people and the servants for God and of God, right? You know, the ones that sit there and watch you, everything you do, and need to humble you. They need to cause trauma, transgressions in your life and obstacles, and they feel destruction. They need to disgrace you. They need to humiliate you because they feel that you need to be knocked down a couple of pegs. So they're doing it for God, you know, the servants, you know, and there's a belief here. And I think we don't have any more discernment because we have air energy and then we have earth energy, but then we have spirit. And what is happening is that we are confusing air with spirit. So there's no more spirit. So people believe that they're all gods and they are the servants of gods. And they'll talk. They'll have all this hierarchy bullshit, right? And you're like, what is she talking about? Well, let's see what I'm talking about. Then maybe we can get to some points here. The way that I'm looking at the world, I think the world is ghetto. And I think the world is on some cold ass spell work. And they're pushing that spell work on us. And everything is fake. Where there's confusion, there are lies. And where there are lies, there are confusions. And I'm like, what is happening, right? I was looking at this information about Gaza and the Middle East and the supposed war that's going on and the bombings and so on. I'm a little curious about what is really going on in Gaza because something is up. And I don't believe it's what they're telling us, right? The way that it presents itself, it looks like a whole social experiment. When you start to look at parts of the Middle East, you can compare it to what has been going on in the United States. What is very interesting is them moving people from one encampment to another encampment to another encampment. And I'm like, damn, that looks familiar. People camping out in front of apartments, in front of houses, them wrecking up whole, places that was like luxury and vacation and so on. It's just really weird. But when you compare the Middle East to the United States, you will see it's the same frequency. You have alleged homeless people in encampments, same tents, same energy, moving place to place. I was listening to something in Atlanta where they were like, where did the homeless go? In DC, they still have the damn military out and about. Okay? So where are all these people going and where are they moving them to? And they're moving them place to place. The energy that I was looking at, they dropped flyers from the sky. And when they drop the flyers from the sky, it tells the people what's happening and if they need to move somewhere else because they're going to bomb in that area. Literally, you will see in the Middle East just a whole desert of encampments. Okay? So what the fuck is really going on here? And why are Americans or around the world living in that type of war-torn frequency? And what is the philosophy behind it? What is very interesting, the person was talking about how they starve the people, like they intentionally are starving the people from food, water, nutrients. And they were talking about how if you starve someone, then they'll want to fight, which is true, which they will want to cause a war, which they will continuously be in strife. But isn't that what's happening here too in the United States? They starving us with nutrients, food, dehydration, all of this mess, right? Just like the energies that's going on in Louisiana, that they went and fucked up the whole environment and ecosystem, the water system, the farming system, all of that, right? And now it's to the point that you can clearly see that it was orchestrated and it was an intent, and it is considered a human rights issue, okay? Which is a straight lawsuit, okay? And it's more than just a land grab. Like, what are they really doing? However, when you also look at India, here's another thing. This is for the fashion world and wholesale. When you look at India, the UK, in addition to the Middle East, they sell wholesale clothes. Notice it looked like Fashion Nova. It looked like something you would just get on. It's from wholesale. Okay? We better start looking what's going on abroad, because there's some interesting energies that basically mirrors what's going on in the United States and around the world. Okay, so we have an issue of starving people. We have an issue of encampments. We have an issue of clothing and wholesale. We have an issue of mind control. We have an issue if we starve people, they'll fight, they'll be in strife, they'll be in depression. Then you lead yourself into Japan. Then you're finding out more and more backstories about Japan, how people are lonely and depressed, and how people are so separated from themselves and they want to have company. That's why they have remember that's the stuff they was having in Japan, the hugging and all that shit, because people are fucking lonely. But doesn't that go back to the pandemic of starving people of stimulation and having company and having loved ones, and then separating them through 6 feet Zoom? You can't do this and you can't do that. Everything is being done in a whole other country because it is a social experiment. I was looking at Indonesia and I was looking at their military, how their military is kind of a stickler and part of the entertainers. And it's like as if the entertainers do anything, the military person is right there. So therefore, they, like the United States, is literally emulating what's going on in these other riffraff countries. Yeah, riffraff. Because then I was listening to something and they made a great point, and they were talking about the luxury construction and architecture and the aesthetics of these new luxury houses and apartments and condos, and said, hey, do you notice that they look like corporate, or matter of fact, corporate entities like businesses, or, or the work environment. And I said to myself, I'm like, they onto something. I thought I was tripping. Do you know what type of psychological warfare to have some riffraffs, as they call it, build cookie cutter houses and cookie cutter condos and all these apartments, and the aesthetics of it look just like the job that you just left, and then charge you ducats? I was looking at this luxury home, this mansion. It was, and I forgot it was some part of Orange County, and that shit was like about 5 million. And I was looking at the kitchen, and I said, damn, that kitchen looked hella familiar to me. Yeah, it looked fucking familiar to me. It looked like fucking UC Berkeley's kitchen. Damn. It does look like these jobs, the aesthetics, the architecture, the furniture, all of that. And I'm like, what type of mind games is that? We have forgotten about architecture and living in a home, because they're building these homes with cheap ass materials and telling you it's luxury, but they are intentionally creating an environment that is basically corporate entity. It's like training your brain, right? You are not supposed to be comfortable in your home. But furthermore, the other energy, I was like, wait a minute. And they were talking about the brick homes. I mean, building the materials and, that grayish, concrete. They were talking about concrete. I forgot what they call it, but there's a certain psychology behind living in concrete, living in a concrete home. It's just like the projects, right? There's a certain type of confinement, but I forgot there's a certain word for it that they're using. So we have to be careful of what's going on in the universal soul, because they are intentionally creating an atmosphere. It's kind of like the lies that they've been talking about with India, like India is a refugee and they're having a human rights issue in India and they need to come to the Americas and Canada for asylum, but that's on straight cap and bullshit. And then after that, they'll give you a statistic. Don't believe those scientific statistics, because they're being deceptive about what is really going on in India, and they don't want to tell you that they've been up there giving them visas, work visas, school visas, and all of that mess to come here to America. That was the whole issue that was the whole issue of what was going on in Canada, because they had a swarm of them coming in on fucking visas and then coming into the United States, into New York and shit. And then I will assume even through Alaska, whatever else, into the United States. So we just have to be careful of the lies being told to us. And again, these new concept of people are called riffraffs because these people are bringing impoverished mind frames into the universal soul. They have poverty minds, and these people don't come from anything, but they're giving you the illusion that we are wealthy, we have this, we have that, but they really riffraffs. That's why with like some of my spiritual constituents, I tell them what type of men to watch out for, especially men who are college educated, because you can tell broke niggas who don't come from shit, but let alone they'll date you and then will disrespect you and want you to kiss their ass. You got to watch those type of niggas, because some of them don't come from anything, and then some of you'll be like, well, he has a mother and father, but you got to be careful of that too, of some men who are raised in a two-parent household, because sometimes they'll side with one parent, and I'm finding more and more black men have an issue with their mother who is with their father. So let's not get that fucked up. The bottom line is that you have to really scan their resume and understand how and what is their thought process, what is their religion and thought process of a woman. Because it doesn't matter if he's educated, he could be a super asshole. And I'm seeing this more and more with my spiritual constituents, that I have to guide them and tell them what the fuck to look for. And the number one thing I tell them to do, don't give them no pussy. Don't give them nothing, because you got to see what the fuck that is. And more when I'm telling them, they're like, Lord, I'm telling you. So it's this universal soul. Those are riffraff niggas. Those are niggas who don't come from anything, that don't grab onto nothing. Those, and understand, again, they call riffraffs, okay? However, me talking all of this, as I call it, God's servants, you have to be careful, because some black men will trick your ass talking about, well, God this and God that. No, they just God's servants. So you have to be careful, because God's servants will actually pull law on you. So therefore, if you think you big or you have a certain energy about yourself, they'll say, well, I'm God's servant and I'm going to knock them down. You got too much pride. You're too arrogant. You ego tripping. Okay, especially if you're a black woman. So understand what that is. More and more you get these crazy ass black men like your Umar Johnson that's telling you that the white girl is more supportive to the black man. I was outraged when my spiritual constituents was telling me, and she's a millennial, was saying, hey, this is what I heard and this is what I seen on social media. I said, well, what is that? She was like, oh, they're not telling you that when these guys are being recruited and they mess around with some of them white girls and they with these white girls and stuff, that some of them white girls were doing their homework and shit in college. I said, excuse me? She said, yeah. Apparently, some of them motherfuckers, they get these white girls, and the white girls is doing their fucking homework. The white girls is making them comfortable. The white girls is doing all this shit from them. So basically, they owe these bitches. And then I'm learning more and more that white girls don't go to school for education in college or education purposes. They're going there for a husband, where you have your black woman who's going to school to be educated, to survive, to be something better. So therefore it creates, remember I said, the independence, where we don't need him to take care of us. See, remember I showed you and talked to you about the jealousy. That's spell work, okay? That's the bottom line. So it makes you go back and look at any other culture of woman going to school to be educated. Are you going to school to be educated because you're looking for a husband, or are you looking to be educated because you want to enlighten yourself? Black women don't go to school for looking for husbands. We go to school to be educated, but we have to side-eye these other cultures of women of why they're going to school on some real shit. Because when I heard that energy about these white girls, I was like, oh, to the no. Anyway, God's servant, Charlie Kirk. How I feel about this is I'm going to look at it in a certain way. It's very interesting to me of what's going on. I was telling someone, I said, I'm very confused because the first time I understood about Charlie Kirk was some years back when I could have swore, and help me out, y'all, didn't Tariq Nasheed debate with this dude? I thought I watched that. Or didn't he come out back then when Trump was in office, but it was very light. It was just kind of blah. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like he would talk shit, but it wasn't anything substantial. Then he just disappeared for some years, right? Then I found it interesting that he was on the loose again, and he really had some talking points. And it was like you can clearly see that they really, mounted a whole lot of energy in his brain, and they really had him going. And I said, dang, he's a whole hack. And he's giving you all of these talking points. It's like, and then the people that they had questioning him, it was very clear they were orchestrated. It was like an acting role, right? It's like this. I started to look at Gavin Newsom, and I'm like, is he an actor? Because more and more I'm looking at these politicians, and I want a backstory. It's very clear they are not running a government. So who runs the government? Where follow the money? Who's running the government? What the fuck is going on? When I look at Gavin Newsom and the way he acts, because they're out here talking about he missing again. I said, oh Lord, where he at? So allegedly Gavin Newsom is missing again. They're kind of saying Trump is missing too. However, I kind of sat back and thought about something, because allegedly Willie Brown said that he groomed Gavin Newsom, allegedly. But the funny thing is, the only thing we know about Gavin Newsom is what they tell us. But we've never seen him with his mother. We've never seen him with his family. I don't think we've really seen him with Nancy Pelosi, allegedly. We don't know nothing. So I said, damn, he could be a whole actor. He acts like an actor. Okay? Then I started to look at all of the politicians. I said, who are these people? Where did they come from? What is the connection? Who trains them? Why are they even fucking president? Then I looked at Trump's mother and father. I said, are these really his parents? Who in the fuck is this man? Where did he come from? Who are any of these people? I started to look at these entertainers. They're making a big deal about this actor Emmy dude. He run the Emmys. His last name is Tillman, and they're making a big deal about him. The first black. I say he's always the first black, but then he's always a gay guy to follow underneath it. But who are you? Are you a third world? Don't get it fucked up because they say they from DC and they from all these places, because he looked third world to me. I don't know what that is. Okay? So the bottom line is that we have to kind of understand some of these frequencies. I was looking at some of these entertainers, and when I was looking at some of these entertainers, I said they sure look like asylum-based. From the Beatles to David Bowie. I was talking to someone about Elton John, how allegedly he kept trying to kill himself. Diana Ross seemed like she has psycho issues. I was recently looking at something with Patti LaBelle, Shaka Khan, and Stephanie Mills. They all look like they don't like each other. They on each other's nerves. Matter of fact, are they even the real people? That don't even look like Patti LaBelle. What the fuck? You got Mariah Carey, she looking crazy on the VMAs, so she looked like a whole dude. We don't know what's going on with that. Ariana Grande looked like she should be in a psych ward for fucking at that anorexia. You have Summer Walker, we know she crazy as fucking, then she has that autistic issue going on, because you know her kids beat her fucking ass. And she up there doing pimping and pandering with some white men that look like Hugh Hefner and shit. And then they got her under Pamela Anderson effect, from Pamela Anderson into Rihanna into what is it, that Beyonce. What's up with that fucking hat shit? We don't know what the hell is going on. All these people they have psychosis. It seems like the White House is a whole crack house. Everybody seems like they fucking dope fiends. We have damn J.D. Vance. He's always looking pasty and shit. I'm like, what he on? We're not going to even talk about Patel. So we are not supposed to sit up and see that there's a whole party going on. I mean, goddamn. You tell me what the fuck is going on here. Okay? Then this happens, so we have another distraction. We don't know where in the hell Charlie Kirk came from. I'm looking at Charlie Kirk. I said, damn, he sure looked like Barron Trump's son. His whole story background doesn't make sense. I was looking at his education, because the way how they sat up and had that whole casket and political energy like he's a whole military motherfucker, I don't get it. So let me understand something here. As soon as he come out, now here's the new thing, what they doing. They're beating you to the fucking punch. You can't even be a conspiracy theorist, because they done created CIA conspiracy theorists to out-theory you. You can't even go, hey, no, we got that. Da-da-da-da-da. So they already have a cyber conspiracy theorists on social media already pointing shit out and taking away from the real conspiracy theorists. Okay? I peeped that shit. They want to direct you to everything. So now I'm to the point, if they're directing you to it, don't believe it. That means there's some kind of lie. It's orchestrated. Because back in the day, they did not direct you to nothing. But now they're directing you. Look, he's doing hand signals. He's doing this. He's doing that. It's like, God damn, nothing is real. Right? So the big deal in this energy is we just had a mass ritual, a political mass ritual. Who was sacrificed? Was it Charlie Kirk or was it us? Because it sounds like we were sacrificed for whatever reason. And it's a cold game in a cold society, because they had us look at a death which kills a part of our soul, our mind, our frequency. It causes us to walk around like fucking zombies because we're watching death. So who's dead? We're dead, right? So it's this argument between blacks, between whites, between him. And how about none of this shit is real? That we all should sit on the fucking shelf. We should sit on the shelf. White people should sit on the shelf, and we should sit on the shelf with this bullshit right here, because we don't know what's going on. Okay? As for these fucking Aryans, just sit your ass on the shelf, because y'all looking real crazy, and I think there's an intent to cause you to look real interesting, right? Because certain things are not adding up about Charlie Kirk's story. First of all, let's see here. Are y'all looking at his Wikipedia? Something not right. I thought y'all said he went to LSU. There's nothing here that said that he went to LSU. Okay? So it says that he tried to go to the United States Military Academy, West Point, but he was rejected. Then it said that he tried to attend Harper's College, but he dropped out. When did he go to LSU? Because for that Smitty's explosion, there's a whole energy going on behind that where they're saying, do not pay attention or accept any results from LSU lab. You see, there's something about LSU. Because people have talked about that LSU shit, and you don't want to go there for any sicknesses because they do a lot of testing, and it's almost like, what's that cyanide hospital over here in Los Angeles. So there's some interesting frequencies, and I don't know what is the background of LSU, but they own it. Okay. Anyway, so his education is questionable. And again, I don't know where LSU then came from. And, furthermore, it makes me a little suspicious, especially of some of them black sacrifices that was popping off. However, I have some questions. The whole energy reminded me of Martin Luther King when he was assassinated. It reminded me of JFK and Robert Kennedy. It just smells of recycled death, right? Then I was confused because when the shooting got to shooting, everybody turned to their right. This is from a distance, and they look back. And I'm like, well, who are they looking at? They never showed you. Like, usually somebody will turn their phone or whatever. You just seeing people looking back, and then they got to running. Then they're alleging his daughter and wife was there. I said that was a cold sniper. So if I look at it on the surface, I said, God damn. Okay. Then when you look at it from the side, now I'm suspicious. I'm not saying what it is. I'm not saying what it ain't. I'm just saying I hope in the next six years, this motherfucker doesn't pop up somewhere. I'm just saying. But however, if I was to look at it from the surface, I said that's a cold game and a cold piece of work. And, and you seen kind of the what's up. I was like, damn. Ugh. However, in my world of costuming and makeup and FX, I was talking to my son about it, and I was just like, there's something about how he was shot and how that blood came out. And I said, then the whole looks like it's not going through. It looks surface, and it gives an illusion. Then whatever gun that was, it lit the neck, because when you look closely to the footage, there was a light. It hit it, and I said, what the fuck? And I don't, hey, I'm just asking questions. I'm just looking at it, right? And then the person tried to explain and said the bullet hit him and he started to seize. And I was like, Then I became confused. Then I'm like, when did he actually get shot? And who is this? Because if you go back and look at it, when you get past the people doing signals behind him, does that look like Charlie Kirk? Not being rude. I'm just saying, one, Charlie Kirk was acting weird. Let's say the person was acting odd. He was acting like it was something going to happen, because we have to remember that full moon was just 2 days or whatever before that. And then the next day or so, or 2 days, you had the blood moon, which was the eclipse. And then you already know they're going to be on bullshit because it was 999666. So when I seen that shit, I said, oh, people going to start dropping. Somebody big is going to die. I knew that the way how those numbers. And then the month of September is the month of death. Okay, understand, because that is a completion, but it's death. It's a death month. Okay. So it makes a lot of sense of what's going on. So I'm like, okay, so they're being novelty, they're doing shit, right? So again, I'm like, there's something weird about this whole thing. Are we looking at two deaths? Are we looking at the for real death with the fake death? Meaning, was he really murdered, but the shot is not of him, but of somebody else? Because you don't, it's like, they clip everything together. Because again, I have to go into my costume. I said, and I'm trying to tell my sons, I said, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying it just looked like costume makeup. It's something about it that seems odd. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Then I think before that, was that at another place, I think it was called Pushmere. The boy had on a top called Pushmere. He said at another rally for this Charlie Kirk that he drove 4 hours from, I believe, the University of Utah. The Utah Valley University. That was at a different rally. I said, okay, he drove 4 hours from Utah, and he has on black and white, and this, I think it was called Pushmere, which is a whole code, black, and then of course they're going to do the Masonic black and white, the orchestrated people that go up to the mic. Then here, I believe that Charlie Kirk, he had on a black and white top that said freedom. So it's all Masonic. It's just weird shit going on all around. There's too many codes. There's too many people trying to break it down. There's too many type of conspiracy theorists. His background doesn't make any sense. They're talking about he went to LSU, but then you can clearly see in the documentation the boy then dropped out of college and was rejected, and he's a stimmer. He looked like he may have some kind of mental illness. On the simple fact that he doesn't really look at you in your eyes. He looks downwards, then he kind of stems a bit, and then he comes back up and then gives you an answer. Okay, so therefore this opened the doors then to other supposed Aryans, because there's a whole new movement and cult of skinheads who are Asians. Now, I've seen the black ones in the UK, but there's some new ones in these like the Philippines and these Asian countries, and they're calling themselves skinheads, and they have their kids dressed like these little Irish badass kids out here and shit, and talking about their kids are Aryans. And I'm just like, man, I don't be trying to fuck around with them Aryans, because I remember when them motherfuckers would come out of Oregon and Seattle into San Francisco and be stomping down Haight Street and shit, and that was a whole piece of work, and they be on fucking heroin. And then you already know that they come out of Oregon into Utah, then Utah into Oregon. And then that into Oregon, Utah, then into Idaho, all them white folks didn't move there, especially a lot of those white entertainers. And there's always something going on between Oregon and Utah, some kind of mass shooting. Then you had the weird shit going on with Colorado. There was a mass shooting. It's just so out of line. Right? So I said, what is the distraction? So that's why I'm like, hold on. We have all of these protests going on in Nepal, Germany, France, UK. Gosh, what the hell? It's all happening. Everybody is just in turmoil and fucked up. So then I'm looking at this. I'm like, why are white people acting like some black person then came up and did some shit and nobody did nothing? I'm about tired of them trying to harass black people on some bullshit. And I'm about tired of these white people that these paid actors. They're paid fucking actors. When I seen that shit in Huntington Beach talking about white this, white that, white man, take your land back. Man, it's not your fucking land because your people come from somewhere else. Y'all just thieves. Okay? And then I started to look at the way they appear. I said, oh, this is the code of Charlie. This is a new uprising, because you already know back in the day, especially with Gen X, they were already having Aryan these Aryan clubs, Aryan cults for kids. So all Generation X and stuff like that, they've been having all that Hitler type of shit for kids. It's just, as black people, we don't teach our kids to be discriminatory or racist, but we should, because these white folks out here in other cultures and mixed companies teach their kids to be discriminatory. Okay? Hell, my kids be giving me damn hell. I be trying to teach them and they want to be kumbaya and shit. You know, that's how that is. However, we have to understand what the fuck is going on, because again, things are not making sense. They gave us 3 different shooters and said they were the shooters. They gave us a senior citizen Jewish man. Then there was another white man. And then they came up with this skinny white man that fits the energy, but then he had on a backpack. I said, what's up with this backpack? There was no gun in that backpack. You can tell there wasn't a gun in that backpack. Then they set up and topped it off by saying, oh, yeah, and he lived with a transsexual or a trans. Then they was giving so many codes. Then trans did, then pow pow. And I'm like, oh, hell no, this shit is crazy. That's why we have to put it on the show, because we don't know what's going on. Then allegedly, especially Louisiana, they over there harassing the black colleges and shit. Who harassing the black colleges now? Allegedly. Because, you know, they're telling me about it. I'm like, what the fuck? Then I'm like, well, how you guys are angry with each other? I mean, who are you angry with? That's why I'm like, white people, just put yourself on the shelf, because they're making y'all look crazy and demented. You know, we already know that this was in-house. Very clear it was in-house. We just don't know where it came from, but it was very much an in-house energy. Okay, but I'm just saying to you that it's a lot of shit going on. You can't believe conspiracy theorists anymore. They've been wearing out conspiracy theory on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. On TikTok, they got that conspiracy theory shit real bad. Those higher conspiracy theorists just coming up with shit. More and more when you're listening to Instagram, it is drowning. It will drown you. It's like, what the hell are they talking about? So with this whole situation, my main question is, who in the fuck is that up in the casket? Was that a fucking wax mannequin that his wife allegedly kissed the hand? I said, that is not a dead man. That is a wax figure, and she need to stop. Then I got thrown off because her hair was so bleached. Then she looked like a damn AI or whatever that is. And I'm like, what's happening? And then I'm like, what is up with all these Aryan white women with blonde hair? What the hell is that? Is she a Ukrainian? Because we have to understand there's some funny business going on, and I'm so tired of hearing about fucking Epstein. I want to understand who are all these blonde white all these blonde white women. God damn. Okay? And are these women even American white women? Including that Levitt chick, because it's a little scary. It's look like the children of the dam, and it's making me have a nervous condition. It's too many white women with blonde hair. Too many. You know, and I'm not being discriminatory. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. We got all these white women with blonde hair. Then you have the cult of Charlie's with all this dark hair. Then he has a son named Barron. He done dropped out of fucking NYU. You should have known that was coming. So he's back in the White House. We don't know what the fuck is going on. And I think somebody was trying to argue with me about that Melania. What's his wife? Don't argue about that white woman. I don't know nothing about her. And the thing about it is, and that's a whole ritual, so I don't know what that is. Okay? was very interesting. He gets shot, he get a casket, he get flown, then people are mixing people up about all this flight shit and who then flew out, and it's like, no, that's not the way the world works. When people do crimes, you don't know who did what. They just feeding us bullshit. They just feeding us this bullshit, and we are being very much distracted. This is not about freedom of speech and he can't say this and he can't say that. This is just the most sacrificial shit for them to come up with more bullshit. I want to know, are they going to push out Patel? What are they trying to hide? What happened? Those are my questions, because with David Shapiro and Candace Owens get the same reception, now all of a sudden they up there photoshopping Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk together. We ain't been seeing them together. They have never mentioned each other. Right? You guys, spiritual constituents, talk about freedom is dead. No, I want to know why Beyonce and Jay-Z is allegedly running their asses to the UK. And the UK, like, we don't know them people. Because you understand all the entertainers that were here, then went abroad and now trying to make money abroad, especially, remember I talked about with Rihanna and certain makeup brands and all of that going to India and everything is abroad. Just like I told you that I believe all of them entertainers and Russell Simmons and them was over there in Indonesia producing and basically molding them people over there. And now they the new black people doing black shit, R&B and shit like that. I don't trust human beings that walk like animals, because I watched one of them singers and she was walking like a cat. I ain't got time for that. Some of their music is cool and shit, but it sounds very, 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 very familiar to American shit. I'm telling you, everything is not what you think. I was listening to Aretha Franklin and Smokey Robinson. They were on Soul Train. You could pull it up back in the 70s. It's a little eerie because Aretha Franklin and Smokey Robinson been knowing each other since they were kids, like that. And I thought to myself, I'm like, Smokey, did you know she had that baby at 12? What the fuck was that about? Okay? You got to understand some things. And we still trying to figure out if Jay-Z and Beyonce is buying a house in the UK, whose house really is that? Who they hiding? Who's the LLC? Who is that for? Just like the house here, they was talking about how they're, getting a loan out on that house. They're not getting the loan. Who? Right? Because Jay-Z don't look like he have good credit. Allegedly. None of my business. So therefore, we just don't know what's going on. And again, I don't believe anything anymore. I can't. It's just ridiculous. And you have to have discernment, because you always have to remember these people are servants of God. Okay? Yeah. And again, we have to be careful of these new forms of conspiracy theories, because again, we don't know what's going on. Like I told you, when you go look up his real history, you like, what is going on? Then I'm like, is he somebody's son? Is this a Nicole Richie syndrome? Is he the son of a military man or a political person? And what I mean in the Nicole Richie syndrome, meaning she's somebody else's kid, but somebody else is raising her. Just like they was talking about that energy with the dude from Lincoln Park, that he belongs to this political person that hangs out with Hillary Clinton and all of the spirit cooking people, but he gave his son up, and his son became an artist, whatever person in that group, Lincoln Park. Was it Padidia, whoever his name is? It's like, God damn. And you learn more and more that you don't know if these are these people's children. Maybe that's why it's so easy for them to get rid of them and sacrifice these kids and shit, right? Just like I was listening to something more and more, I'm like, are these airports built on top of black people? First, you hear about LAX being built, on top of a black neighborhood. Now you're hearing about the Dulles International Airport in Virginia. They say that was a whole black city. It's like, what the fuck is going on here, right? Then to go back to the Charlie Charlie Kirk, they up there saying that they found the gun in the woods. What you mean you found the gun in the woods? Nobody go hide no gun in no fucking woods. Okay. How do you know that you even for real looking at Trump? That is just not an AI. Right? I started to think about how they up there reporting that they're getting ready to send troops or whoever to Louisiana. I said, bullshit. And Chicago, and they still talk about they're gearing up to have them go into the slums. The fuck you talking about? What slums? Why don't you go to these white folks' place over there in Utah who's doing the shooting? Because none of this makes sense. It sounds ridiculous, because then it started making me think about ICE. I said, Huntington Beach. Huntington, like Orange County is fucking sundown. I don't care. Anaheim, Santa Ana, all that shit is sundown. Okay, but Huntington Beach is sundown to the ground. You got me? And that protest of the cult of Charlie is there. It was there. And they was chanting some dumb shit, but again, I think those were paid actors. But I started to get suspicious of how they attacked neighborhoods. I said, damn, how about they're attacking these neighborhoods because they're really going to have a race war. And they need to have these black guys in line. They need to, make sure they don't have guns or they're in jail. They have felonies. Can you imagine? They already messed up the neighborhoods. Just understand what I'm saying. Maybe the real energy, something else is coming down the pipeline. And if they can have the military unarm the neighborhood for real, then they can come in and do whatever they want to do with women and children. It goes back to the mess that was going on in the Bronx and Brooklyn and arresting everybody up in the projects. And then that makes it easier access to come in and do whatever you want to do to the women and men and the women and children. Then there aren't any men to protect the neighborhood, right? So we're just going to arrest you. Are we going to disarm you? Are we going to find something? Then you have the Latino community that's also about it, and the Latino community be having guns and shit, because I be seeing them at the gun shows. But we just get your ass call ICE on you or have you locked up in ICE and have you locked up in ICE maybe for a couple of years or so. Or matter of fact, we'll just send you to Africa somewhere, to another country by accident. And then you can't get back to where you need to go. So if your ass need to go to Mexico, they didn't send you over there to where, to Rwanda somewhere, who knows, or send you to Cuba somewhere. And I tell you, when you look at Cuba, Cuba looking rough. That's a rough Caribbean island. Anyway, I'm just looking at the energies like, what the fuck is going on, right? More and more, why is ICE picking up pretty Latina girls? What y'all doing? More and more, they're talking about this. They're saying they didn't pick up my daughter, my niece, and we don't know where she's at. We haven't heard from her. Y'all don't think that's odd? If you have El Salvadorans, whatever they call it, the gangs, and then you bring the military and you have Mexicans and Central and South Americans, especially Mexico and Central America, and they're not afraid to fight the police, to fight military, why wouldn't you not do the ICE raids? Why wouldn't you not be on bullshit? Right? Just saying. Furthermore, there's been a whole lot of Africans talking shit about Americans. Okay? And when they're talking shit about Americans, they're talking shit with Haitians, with other third world motherfuckers. And I started to think about something for a goddamn moment. I said, just wonder, Africa is a whole damn hack. I know it's a hack. Because I've been doing a lot of research about Italy, Greece, and Israel. Okay? And more, the people who are, of course, in Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Sudan, whatever, Sudanese, Somalia, Egypt, you will find, but especially, I'm going to say Ethiopia and all of that, you will find more of that in Italy, Greece, and also in Israel. So I said, did they do the same thing? They went and kicked these people out of their country and put them on that continent? Because we would never think that Africa was a whole plantation. Right? So anyway, we would never think Africa was just a whole plantation. When you study Napoleon, and Napoleon really coming out of Italy, but when you study the real Napoleon, you will see Napoleon was a melanated person. Napoleon was black. Y'all not even seeing the real Napoleon. They're telling you that white man and all that shit in Italy and all that, and in the way, no. I think your history was fed to you because, again, they're not giving you the real Napoleon because they don't want us to know that our own people or melanated people was against ourselves. Okay? Then you have another situation where in the Vatican, or you start to understand some of the beings like Solomon and all those energies, when you start to see the energies, of course, of Jacob and all of these energies, they're all melanated. They're all black. You don't think that's interesting? They had all these American black people at the Vatican singing. For what? More and more I am to believe that Africans are hacks. I'm about tired of them saying that as American Black people, we don't have a culture. We have more of a culture than Africa. And I know you're like, what? You better best believe it. Start to analyze, get down to the root of certain things, and you will start to realize, dang, that was American. This is American. Wait a minute, over here is a hack. These people talk too much shit about American people. So I'm going to assume, wait a minute, what happened? Were you psyops? Were you psyops like the Native Americans? The hybrids? Who are you? What are you? Have you guys been studying this shit that's been popping up about Africa? Have you been peeping at African women? Have you been peeping how they've been doing some interesting sexual shit? Especially with animals? What's going on? And why are African people infatuated with American culture saying we don't have it? We have it. We just lost it. Like you lost it. That's why I said Africa is nothing but a whole Silicon Valley. What's the difference? What culture? In South Africa, I'm seeing that you're doing yoga. Over there in Ghana, you're doing yoga. Haven't y'all been seeing the whole yoga shit with Disneyland now? And they're going to open up yoga clubs? And you're like, no, she's wrong. Africa, you don't know what the fuck is going on because they've lied about our history. They have mixed us up in different parts of the world. You don't know what is what. All I'm saying is, did Africa sell us out? They talk about us too much. There's too much of our culture that's over there. What culture? I talk to African people all the time. They motherfuckers. They have this weird hierarchy with the eldership. What? What culture are we talking about? What, dance? Customs? I'm only responding to what I'm looking at on social media. It's like enough is enough. Cut it out. How come we all just can't have just all different cultures of Black people? Why everything had to be pointed at Black people in America? Some of the issues going on, I don't even know if it's American Blacks. They didn't set up and created some bullshit with this Ukrainian woman that was allegedly in the Carolinas on a train with a whole bunch of Black people that allegedly watched her get stabbed by a Black man with dreadlocks who have mental illness. And she was a frayed white woman with blonde hair, petite, and next thing you know, she falls out and she's a dead. And I'm like, I am totally confused by this. And why is the blood in the seat? And then they created some conspiracy theory and a big deal about that and made that a race issue. And I said, damn, this case is very similar to the one that happened in Oakland or in in Oakland with the young Black woman with the white boy that stabbed or murdered her, and he ended up getting life. And the same issue, mental illness. And you have to be careful because they have brought in Ukrainians, and Ukrainians are your new, what I call, hype boys. So anytime there's a racial issue, they're going to pull in the Ukrainians. You'll start to see that. Just like that whole thing with that Carmelo Anthony, that was a whole bunch of them Ukrainians talking shit behind it. Be careful of that. Be careful of these new Aryans. Okay? Because they're creating story tales behind them and want us to believe it. Right? Then this crazy story, this is nothing but a motherfucking Tubi movie, that alleged illegal immigrant. So we have that story out of Maryland with that, what's her name, that DaCara Thompson, who's 19 years old, who allegedly went off with Hugo Hernandez and Mendez. And I said, Hugo Hernandez Menendez, then I started like, you mean like Aaron Hernandez and the Menendez brothers? With a German Hugo? Okay. Then I started looking at his uniform. I said, that's a city uniform. I said, is he one of them Central Americans or South Americans that they pulled from somewhere? You know, kind of the ones that they were thinking who built the bridge or something with the bridge, and the bridge fell over there in Maryland or something. Is it that? I don't know. And then I started looking at her features, and a spiritual constituent pointed out, and she said, doesn't she look like Rashida's stepdaughter from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta? I said, she sure, yeah, she does. Then I said, shit, she looked like Shaquila in a way, right? So I said, there's a lot of suspicious energy going on. I said, this story sounds fake. And then the spiritual constituent said, well, I'm a little suspicious on why they're putting so much, highlight with this frequency. Like, who is she? What is she about? I said, my main thing is, was she prostituting? Because they've never addressed that part. She goes into this dark area, then she gets into a truck and then ends up at a man house. And then the man looked like, allegedly he's an immigrant. I said, they're trying their damnedest with this immigrant shit. Right? Aren't y'all tired of Marc Jacobs looking like a 1989 grandmother or auntie who's making fucking smothered liver and collard greens? He has a little Jerry curl with some nails. What's wrong with Marc Jacobs? All he's doing is soul mounting black women. I'm about tired of these people soul mounting black women. Shit crazy as fuck. Did you see that Dapper Dan Lincoln commercial? I said, I hope that they're not trying to take him out. I was at the movies. No, I'll get to that in a minute. Are you seeing how these white girls getting on TikTok and on social media stealing black women ideas? Then when the black women confront them on their products, they're taking them to court, suing them on their own shit. Have y'all been seeing that? Be careful of these white girls. You see that Billy Porter, they didn't say he didn't have septus or whatever, because the white boy then took his place for Cabaret. I said, he sure been getting a lot of bad juju. What the fuck did he do? I said, that Hollywood shit is for the birds. They've been like demoting him for a minute. Damn. And then talking about people didn't even like him in the whole Cabaret energy. I'm still trying to figure out why in the fuck was Marlon Wayans on that Kai, so what's his name, Cine or Cine show? What the fuck was he doing on there? You're fucking Gen X. Them people Get on your goddamn nerves. Then you done sat up and told that boy he gonna die in 2 years. He probably is. But damn. He didn't got on that goddamn show and them people done got on his nerves. But then I got suspicious because, like I said, they have him graduate with a high school diploma, so he might be stuck in high school age for a minute. But I could tell they was getting on his fucking nerves. You know damn well Gen X can't be around them dang Gen Zs. You know Gen Zs cut up. You can only take so much. I went to go see that movie Conjure. I was tortured and had to look at this Beyonce commercial that looked like an AI commercial. I don't know what the fuck is going on. But anyway, I went to go see that Conjure movie and I guess it was supposed to have been Mirror Magic. The funny thing is about this frequency is I've been in talks and met these people. And who is it that Lorraine Warren? I remember meeting her back in the 90s because, again, I was studying psychology and I wanted to understand the world of occult world and the philosophies and how people, again, use occult behaviors in psychology. And is there a psychosis within the frequencies of psychology, being a psychic or also being a reader or also ghost, and different research of that frequencies connected to psychology. And so I was recommended to go see this woman, Lauren Warren. Again, I didn't know who she was, just like I didn't know who Michael Kino was. So the funny thing is, within the energies, she was talking about various things of, idols. And I talked to her because of my grandmother's house and my grandmother's items. And I knew my brother was stuck on stupid over his wife. And it was like as if my brother had ownership of all of my grandmother's stuff. And what made me really go to this is because my brother's wife is, my grandmother's house was a Victorian. So my brother lived upstairs, then was my grandmother's energies. And my brother didn't talk to us as a family and say, hey, it's time to clear out mama's stuff. One day, my cousin and I went to my grandmother's place. It was gone, but we go there. And the whole flat was cleaned out. And we were horrified. And then my brother's wife was looking like kind of iffy and nervous. And then she admitted that she and her brothers, they had a rummage sale and basically got rid of my grandmother's stuff. And I said, where's her jewelry? Where is everything? We haven't seen it since. So it was only a couple of things that was left. And it was in the basement. And then, of course, my grandmother had the floor mirror. So I talked to her and I said, because I wanted to understand about curses and how it goes and how to curse items. And so within that energy, it was some things talked about. And I sure enough went to my brother's house and I did some stuff with the mirror. I did some stuff with the items because at the end of the day, I wanted it to come back in some kind of way. And at the end of the day, my brother passed. I think his wife thought she was going to keep that shit, even though she broke my grandmother's dishes. Things came back to me and things went to my cousin. So that was due to Lorraine Warren and understanding idols, understanding how to do work. And let me tell you something, those things are very important, especially when you don't have these items and people take your shit. I understand what she was supposed to do. And she's from San Francisco. Even though I believe she's CIA, her and her husband, that's the way I feel about it. But just like I told you with Sylvia Brown, my mother went to Sylvia Brown. They went first, and later on my mother had me go to Sylvia Brown. And I remember Sylvia Brown had what I think office in Burlingame or South San Francisco, one of those places. That's when I was a kid. But you'd be surprised what I know and who I've seen, who I've met. No fraud business here. My mother thought I was interesting, so she wanted me read. I was talking about people with special needs. So y'all heard about living with Lilac. Lilac's mother, right? The twins' mother. She had a total of 4 kids, and it's the whole the autistic movement and community. Tamara Rochelle Wiggins, who died on 9/6/2025. I've always felt she was industry, and I knew something was up in 2023. But when I understood her daughter was connected to Beyonce, I said, oh, she's ass out. And when I was seeing how Lilac was whooping her ass all the time, no, we're going to stop playing. And she keep talking about that intellectual disabilities. I said, Lilac does not have intellectual disabilities. And we all know it. Anybody black that know better knows fucking well, because we're not going to play games here. But I don't know. There's an energy that's not sitting right. And I don't know why black people or people be on this shit now. They don't want to tell you how people died. But it's something very weird about her whole energy. But her daughter, the one that was in that Beyonce video, she's very suspect. And I was looking at the numbers. Again, here we go with the 999 to 666. I'm being novelty. And I said, ooh, that's a cold game. And that's an industry ritual. It's very clear, because when her daughter came back, her daughter, she has 4 daughters, and I know there's another one, and I don't know which one this one is, because I think there's one that went to Japan somewhere. But this one who have the interesting lip piercings, I said, she's not cool. She's not copacetic. It makes me believe that that daughter was behind it. She was behind some energies, right? Anyway, I went back and I started to look at Doja Cat on that VMAs with the max headroom. I said, they really trying to push us back into the 80s and the early 90s, right? But because of that, it made me go and look at some old rap music. And I started looking at 2 Live Crew. And I said to myself, how in the fuck we didn't catch 2 Live Crew was a whole IEP and hypersexuals? Then I started thinking, was Luke pimping dudes from H-Town? Like, how did we miss that? What the fuck were we listening to? I said, how did we miss that Jermaine Dupri looks special? When you go back to 1987 and you see that Jermaine Dupri, I say, oh, he looks special. Just like Sean Combs. I was up there listening to West Coast and East Coast music. I said, West Coast music is something interesting. And I said to myself, I said, West Coast music is a whole warning and spell work. I'm like, this music sounds like Tubi. I'm up there listening to the Dog Pound. What is this song? for my niggas and my bitches and my bitches and my niggas. Yeah. And I was listening to, then I was listening to ain't funny if the homies can't have none. I said, this is a whole Tubi movie. Then I went back, was listening to NWA. I said, this shit made you not want to be a hoe. But then at the same time, did this music cause Gen X dudes to be motherfuckers and hypersexual? Because Gen X dudes were interesting specimens. But this music here from the Bay Area, Los Angeles, even Texas and Seattle was a different type of frequency than the East Coast. And I was listening to the dude, I forgot his name. I think is it the Goody Mob from Atlanta? And he was talking about, is it Big Boy? I don't know, but the one that raps with Andre 3000 from Outkast, and he was saying how the East Coast didn't like him but like Andre 3000. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I think the East Coast have too much clout. Not being rude, I just started peeping this shit. And the only reason why I came up with that synopsis because I was looking at that energy that was between Yandy and Rashida. And I thought to myself, what the hell was that? Was this real? But it sounds like they was trying to crown each other. It sounds like Yandy was trying to be the queen, what they say, the queen of the South. She was trying to be Sheba, the queen of the South. And I'm like, is she trying to crown herself as the queen of Atlanta? And Rashida's like, fuck you, bitch. So I started to listen very closely. And sometimes you have to be extra careful with people from New York because they bark. Not being rude. I'm not saying all, but they bark. And you don't, and they good with their tongue. So we don't get to listen because they so good with their tongue. Okay? So I'm listening to Rashida and I'm listening to Yandy. And one will say, yeah, Yandy won that. I'm like, but I don't think they listening to Rashida. Rashida is saying something. I knew Rashida was on to something. You may not like her with K. Michelle. I'm like, look. There's something about K. Michelle that we're not seeing. And I'm like, was K. Michelle an escort or a prostitute? And he was her pimp? That's what I picked up from Rashida. And Rashida knows what's going on and telling K. Michelle. But K. Michelle being a Pisces, and K. Michelle is a nasty Pisces. I believe she is a Pisces. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe she's a Pisces. Whatever it is, she's a nasty one. Meaning in personality and attitude. Because there's something underneath it. And there was something that she wanted Rashida to validate with Memphis because she was using Memphis probably as a sacrifice. But there was something going on. And then once that energy came about with R. Kelly, it confirmed what I thought. You could say what you want about Rashida, but Rashida be saying something, but we just don't listen because you guys be thinking she's like a goofball. No, she's just, I believe, a Southern woman or a person just who she is. But it seemed like she and Yandy was fighting for something. And Yandy is third world. I think Rashida is more on the American side again. Yandy third world. She's married to a third world man and all of this energy. And people got stuck on because she kept coming at her, especially about Kirk. I'm not tripping about Kirk because Kirk was in the hot tub with all them hoes. That's all. Well, that's what was going on. And Bambi was there too. I'm not tripping on that. And we all know that he's, fruitful. Okay, we get it. We got it. My question is, Rashida was saying something and we still wasn't listening. And I'm like, did people forget that technically Yandy is married to a trafficker who is trafficking girls and dating little girls? And that was allegedly the real reason that he went to jail. And did we forget the girl that Yandy allegedly adopted that disappeared once when DC came home and you didn't see her anymore? Did we forget that it was a whole Brother Polite effect? Did we forget that keeps coming up that he almost sold his mother into death? Did we forget how Yandy was so grimy that she set up Jim Jones? It was like her and what's her name? The person, Mona Scott was on some shit, right? Then it made me think that murder with Rashida's son and Kirk's daughter, with that ex or the boyfriend. I said, was that a New York moment? Because we didn't get to see the boyfriend and we really couldn't see Kirk's daughter. But the grime of it didn't look right. And I said, it seemed very New Yorky. And I thought it was odd how they kept going at it. I said, there's a fight. There's something going on between Rashida and Kirk and Mendici and Yandy. And it seemed like they're trying to crown each other because Rashida told her to take her ass back to New York. I don't think we're listening right. I think this is some hood shit, ghetto shit going on. And why in the fuck was Phaedra at the Emmys? Pretending she's under rich one, pretending to be Marilyn Monroe. I guess those 15 fingers in the butt meant something, right? And what the hell was going on with little Woody? Why is he going off on Young Thug? Because Young Thug is acting weird? I told you guys there was something up with Young Thug. He didn't get out of jail for nothing. And what the hell is going on with Jason Lee? He don't have a bit of education and he's a vice mayor, was it of Stockton? I know too many people who's fucking qualified who could do that job. He has no political. He don't know about policies or nothing. They just out here giving everybody a job except for the right people. That's a protest. Anyway, this is Weird Renegade Witches Blog. Hit us up when you want some real motherfucking work done.